I have also seen people who are earning about 8 to 10 LPA. In some cases, you will get around 10 LPA if you're like an absolute fresher in a startup.
This is Suryansh Tomar, an ad specialist and performance marketer who has not just managed $600,000 of marketing budget for Stoa, India's one of the leading edtech startups, but was also responsible for the acquisition funnel, generating about 21.7 crores of revenue in just 18 months, all while working with vendors like Shopify, Rabbit Hole, Digital ROI, and others.
In my current company, we spend like hardly a few lakh a month, whereas in my best month, I have also spent 50 lakhs in a month.
In this podcast, we discussed how to become an ad specialist or a performance marketer in the shortest amount of time possible, what are the skills you should be learning, and how to build a work experience from scratch, how to break into startups, picking the right team to work with, and choosing the right company to work at. And we also discussed the impact of AI on performance marketing, plus the industry average salary that you can expect when you start your career as a performance marketer. Hi Suryansh, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Yash.
So can you introduce yourself real quick to the audience in terms of your background? What are the skills you have learned? And from getting into college to now working at companies like Stoa? Just give us a brief overview.
Great. So let me start it from even more from my past. Like let me dig up my past a bit more. So I am from Mathura, and coming from a small town, I think I was always ambitious or wanted to really make it big. I started following. I remember back when that this was in 2016. I started following Gary Vee. Before that, prior to that, I think I was always interested in like knowing about new things. I was mostly into astrophysics or space. That was the curiosity point. That led me to pick up science. Eventually landed up in mass communication. I wanted to do communication management after having a very interesting conversation with a lady at the airport. And part of that conversation was, if you don't know where exactly you want to end up at, you start from what kind of lifestyle you want to pick up. And for me, the answer back then was I wanted to set up my own shop, like set up my own business in something. I was not sure, and I didn't have to be sure. I still don't have to be 100% sure. I just need to eliminate things with time. That is what I ended up doing. So first started with, okay, if I want to have a comfortable lifestyle in terms of what are all the essential items for having your own business or like building your own business. First is definitely you need to know how a business is run. So you need to work with a smaller company just to understand how things are done. Then if you take even further one step, what all is required to get into these kind of companies? So what kind of other skill sets which are required to build up a company? In my mind, in my 11th standard mind, that meant learning more about media and communication. That was the primary thing which I wanted to learn. Figure out, okay, my strengths lie in somewhat communication management as two different keywords. I think what one thing I definitely learned in my 3 years of college was target audience. If you want to sell anything, you need to know who you are selling, what exactly is your audience looking like, uh, where are they hanging out, essentially, in simpler terms. Only then can you market efficiently. Then, like right after college, I was also looking to apply. I opted out of my placement process from my college because I was sure that I didn't want to end up at ad agencies or PR agencies. What I wanted to do was definitely work in startups. Like the original idea of working at a smaller company first, then a bigger company, and then starting something of my own. That was, I think, always the idea. So I essentially ended up at Stoa by luck, more or less. Applied at Zomato first, got rejected, thankfully, because it was a very different kind of a role, very different. It was not exactly marketing; it was something different, and that's when I picked up on AngelList while just browsing. I realized, okay, Stoa is hiring. Even when I joined Stoa, I didn't join as a performance marketer because I didn't have any prior experience to that. Thankfully, a good part about working in smaller teams is you get to pick up a lot of different types of skills, or you get to pick up different types of problem statements, which you have to solve, let's say, maybe through performance marketing, maybe through brand campaigns, maybe through content marketing, something like that.
Got it, got it. So can you also talk about what are some of the skills that are required to start as a performance marketer? Like you said, you learned the importance of audience targeting in college, but what are some of those skills, I would say, that are required for someone to actually break into this role?
Have an affinity for numbers, like stats. Can you make sense of numbers? If you have some certain different types of numbers coming in. Can you do some plus minus divide multiplication to come up with your own set of metrics? Or maybe let's say if you're running a campaign, what do you look at more, CPMs or CTRs, because that becomes your lingo day to day. If I'm talking to, let's say, a Spotify, which we did a campaign, you and I, we both worked together on a campaign for Stoa on Spotify, right? There, the conversation with the guy at Spotify, it was largely around CPMs. कि 135 रुपए में इम्प्रेशन मिलेगा कि 210 रुपए में मिलेगा. That the negotiation was around CPMs, like for every 1,000 impressions, how much can I negotiate? Because
Right.
there you are now negotiating. If I'm spending X lakh of money or X whatever X money, if I'm spending, you divide it by per 1,000. Like if you want to pick out the cost, you divide it by the cost per 1,000 impressions you're getting, and that's the total number of impressions that are going to be delivered. So for any awareness campaign, CPMs are your main metrics. Then for an influencer kind of a campaign, of course, I'm not talking about the absolute performance marketing. That is a no-brainer. That CTRs, like how many clicks you're getting, how many conversions you're getting, that is definitely your daily bread and butter. But those same kind of numbers, if you tomorrow as a performance marketer, you want to also kind of dabble in influencer marketing. Because for example, I remember a point in time when I was also handling a bit of influencer marketing for Stoa. Then we did like a very small campaign, and based on the stats after the campaign, within the 2-3 days of all the posting and everything, I could look at, okay, a bunch of different types of numbers, right from reach to how many followers does an account have. So that affinity for numbers is definitely a strong thing. Also, kind of to circle back on importance of knowing who your audience is, that is definitely hands down the most important feature for any performance marketing person. So you can assume like a Facebook or a LinkedIn to be push marketing and a Google to be a pull marketing, because when you're browsing Instagram or when you're browsing LinkedIn, you're getting an ad which you may or may not want. Your push marketing works when you know who your exact audience is. You're able to narrow down, because in terms of pull marketing, for like a in case of Google, you are searching for shoes. That's why shoes, like the ads for shoes, are come out on top. So for pull marketing, it's much easier. Therefore, the platforms are also designed in the similar fashion. If you are on Google, you're trying to set up a campaign, you never set up an audience with a lot of thought, or you more or less you don't end up, in majority of the cases, people don't end up setting up an audience unless they have a very specific campaign in mind. But on Facebook or a LinkedIn, people try to be more specific about their audience. They don't do a lot of generic campaign unless you have a lot of money to blow. So knowing your audience is definitely one. And second is an affinity for numbers is a crucial skill again. Then third would be have a grasp on copywriting. You need to know if you want to spin up copy that quick. Like, can you write it quickly enough? Because your numbers or like your performance gets impacted if your copy is not good, if your creatives are not good. What is unnecessary in a creative? Only three things matter: your CTA, your headline, and your image. That's it. That's Those are the three main components of a creative. Only that, if you get sorted, especially if you get your hook lines straight, uh, everything is pretty much on the point. You don't need to worry about in terms of creatives a lot.
Awesome, got it. So one of the follow-up questions I have on this is when a lot of people start performance marketing, one of the confusions जो आता है that is कि where do you start? As in, do you first of all learn the platforms, or do you learn about copywriting, or you learn about, let's say, designing the creatives? So what according to you is a good starting point जहाँ पे a person can start and then slowly build the knowledge?
You don't have to, let's say, necessarily learn copywriting or creatives right from the day one. You definitely need to understand the platforms for sure. To understand the platforms, of course, you can just go through any random YouTube video. I think anything can be learned in 10 to 12 hours of YouTube videos. That is more than enough, sufficient information to at least understand how the platforms work. Anything who has a very boring walkthrough of the entire setting up a campaign, you will understand how the platform works at least. Then it's a lot about fixing problems. You end up learning on these platforms by fixing problems. Sometimes you might have not scheduled a campaign to end. It would have burned money for more than 1 or 2 or 3 days. So next time you're always aware that, okay, this is how you end a campaign. Sometimes the CTRs are going down and down because all these ad platforms, they take time to learn who your audience is, like who do you really want to show the ads to.
Right.
These things take time. So there's like a 7 to 14 days of waiting period. So the feedback loop in this particular case is usually longer. So you might not know, okay, what is working, what is not working. Is this the right amount of cost per install or cost per lead? Is your page view numbers, cost per page view, is this average or is this above average? Is this below average? All of that either you can learn from, of course, a lot of reading more on industry. If once you follow some people on LinkedIn or Twitter, more similar people will keep coming up, and you will get a general sense of, okay, what's the industry average like. For example, in my time of handling performance marketing extensively, I also spoke to some senior person who had handled upgrades performance marketing for like good 3-4 years, and I just took up benchmarks from him. That okay, what are the key, let's say for example, average CPLs on LinkedIn, on Facebook, Facebook/Instagram, and on Google. Those industry averages, they kind of remain the same. Like the range is always the same for any industry, more or less. Then you are just basically either doing better than your industry or performing slightly poorer than your industry. You might be optimizing for better conversions down the funnel. So understand your funnel first. That okay, performance marketing is your top layer. You can always get your leads for very cheap. If you promise job and money on signing up a form, people will fill up. Your cost per leads will definitely go down. So if you're optimizing for cost per lead, like bringing down the cost per lead, then you can definitely do that in some 10,000 different ways. However, you have to always optimize for the next stages in your funnel. So if your final conversion, for example, in case of Stoa was a person who gets admitted to the program, right? You need a certain quality of person. So it is fine that if you spend more money on a lead, as in if you're running a very tight campaign on a very narrow audience, the cost per lead will definitely go up. But the chances of that person converting might also go up, like further down the funnel. So you need to keep a track of all of these things. So to understand all of these things, of course, there are two ways. Either you're already running it for a company or like inside a company. Once you join any particular company as, let's say, a junior associate or something like that, handling or understanding performance marketing under somebody, that's the best way to learn for sure. Second best way is to sell something of your own. Maybe you or your friend, you can probably try out like a webinar series. I think it's very easy to start any digital product today. Try to sell up, let's say, a couple of pens or something. Have a budget of 1,000 in your mind. See if you can spend it wisely. 1,000 might be a little slightly too less, but still, it's a good experiment money. 1,000 to 2,000 rupees. Can you try and spend it in terms of Google ads? Sorry, Google ads, not necessarily Google ads, but like Meta ads also. Try and spend it judiciously. That's one way to really like hyper optimize your, okay, your daily budget is only 50 rupees or 100 rupees. You're running it for 10 days campaign. For 10 days, how many people are coming, clicking? You will at least get an understanding of different types of numbers which happen, like that thrill of, okay, the money is actually going out of your pocket. People are actually landing on your page, because performance marketing is just the part of running the ads. There's a lot happens in the background also, like you need to optimize your landing page, you need to do a bunch of stuff. But as a good performance marketer would also understand, okay, how does a landing page look like, where should your form be placed if you're collecting leads, where should your products be placed at if you're trying to get somebody to buy things. So all of those conversion points are also important. So it's always best to learn under somebody. Ideally, join at an entry level position. I would say join at as an internship level, because at least I think the smart people can really pick it up very fast. It's only a month's learning curve. That's it. Then it's about, you can run your own shop, or you can join. You can learn at some place as an intern. Let's say, for example, pick up as much as you can. Then you move to another company, or within the same company, you can pick up a full time kind of role in the same kind of domain. That's the best way to understand, okay, how much do you like
Got it.
performance marketing, and how much can you actually contribute.
Got it. Got it. That was a pretty intensely detailed answer. Also, moving back a little, a lot of people don't really know about the difference between performance marketing and growth marketing, and they generally think that both of these are just same. So, is there like any difference between both of them?
Bunch of my current work at Find, I currently work at Find, by the way. Growth marketing usually happens for tech products, like SaaS products. For example, the kind of products which I'm working on, it's one of them is a website chatbot of sorts. I mean, if I have to put it, growth marketing, it comprises of performance, it comprises of SEO, comprises of, like, these are your awareness channels. Awareness is how do people know about you, right? Performance marketing is one way to get to people to know you, like push marketing essentially. Growth marketing is just like a fancy way of saying that hey, we are doing some SaaS marketing. Performance marketing can be part of growth marketing also. It's more of a subset. Growth marketing is more of an overall looking at a full funnel approach. Where is the user coming in? How are they interacting with your product or website or whatever freemium model है, जो भी model है. And then if they are paying, like first of all, are they paying, not paying? If they've paid, then are they staying, not staying? Why are they not staying? How can you make them stay more? How can you keep getting more revenue out of those people? So that way is the best, I think, to understand growth marketing. The other part is of course the performance marketing, but performance marketing is of course applicable to the more traditional services and the other types of businesses as well. It only deals with awareness but through numbers, and also because it can do conversions, so it's all measurable conversions, measurable marketing in a way. Growth marketing essentially includes a lot more metrics, lot more funneled approach. You try to maximize your existing customers payments as well, because they're end of the day they're using a product of yours. Mostly it's a software. I can't think of an example which is not a software and you are doing still growth marketing for them. Growth marketing, you can also include growth loops in such a way that people
Hmm.
talk about your product. So for example, you might have things like, for example, I think Arc browser. Like I'm right now on Arc browser as well. I got to know about Arc browser from a friend, and it back when I installed it, I think in 2022, uh, it was very much invite only. That's a growth loop. That is also an earned media. That okay, like people word of mouth more or less, and people are writing articles. Okay, what is this revolutionary browser or something like that. I think Superhuman also did that when they came out with their email tool,
Right. Yeah.
inbox tool. So lot of, I mean, growth marketing can also involve anything with respect to acquisition of a product, acquisition of a user, to maximizing the monetization out of it. That will also again include retention strategies also. Growth marketing is more of a funnel approach.
Hmm.
Performance marketing is step in the middle, which deals with acquisition and also deals with numbers, like measurable acquisition numbers.
Got it. I want to ask you, if someone is trying to break into startups and they are like 20 years old or maybe even earlier than that, should they be cold emailing or should they be applying for platforms like Interlist? And should they be joining first of all as an intern, or is it more like a full-time job that they should be aiming for?
Let's break it down into how do you first define, okay, which startup do you want to get into, right? That basic is very important to understand. You first figure out what industry do you want to work in. Is it ed tech? Is it fintech? Is it something agriculture? Is it something public policy? Or do I want to work in whatever XYZ industry? Do I want to work in manufacturing? Do I want to work in fitness, shoes, health, insurance? You pick an industry first, or a couple of industry. That is also fine. But an easier way to understand this would be what gets you excited about is how you pick up an industry. Like your probable or possible interest areas would come from things which you're already doing, things you are already interested in. One more important point on the industries part is your day-to-day language. Let's say if I'm doing performance marketing, if I'm doing for education versus I'm doing for finance versus I'm doing for health, my day-to-day language of conversation with vendors, with external people or internal people, or the kind of accounts I follow just to learn or like to do anything, to be honest, will be centered around these keywords only. So I should be okay with consuming so much of data, so much of information, or talking in that language. Then comes your next part is your company. How do you figure out your companies? Like a simple Google search would also be a good place to start, or maybe go to platforms like an AngelList, right? You just pick up industries, only basic industry filter. Then you figure out, okay, what are different kind of companies are out there. Then the third important factor of picking out any job is the kind of people who are working there. You learn a lot from whoever's around you. If they are more of cribbing nature, you will end up having a bad time. They're more of an ambitious nature or like more creative, suddenly like problem solvers everywhere around you. You will imbibe or you will absorb that kind of nature in your way of working as well. What you really want to ideally optimize for is you should be the you should always have the most smartest, like more smarter people than you at all times. That's how you match their level, and that you can really understand every company, especially startups with smaller teams, let's say under 50, 60, 70 people also. They absorb a lot of culture. Their culture kind of reeks out of their conversations also. Just try to interact, try to talk to more people with those people from that particular companies. When it comes to okay, what kind of startups to pick at? Pick in this particular funding winter, I would say the investors have some sort of trust. Let's kind of bank on the trust being invested. And these news is very easy to figure out. Just a Google search away. Probably pick up any Your Story article, ET News, Inc. 42. They keep publishing every week which startups are getting funded.
Right. Even Angelus does that.
You can just pick up the founders like of that particular startup and see what all they have done in the past. But it's very important to have a very clear reason why you want to work for a particular company. Second is of course cold DMing, always works. As long as a cold email is pretty solid, and you've reasoned out really well, because a lot of cold emails, at least I'm assuming today, are written by ChatGPT. They are some generic piece of bullshit. That's it. Once you really get attracted to a company's mission, or let's say the people who are working there, you can really drill down in your email that okay, why do you want to work there? Third would be finding out founders. Let's say if it's a very small company, founders or whoever is the more decision making power, somebody who will have either less time. For example, when I was working at store, I would recommend in general people to reach out to me, because they will probably not have as much free time as I have. Cold DMing or cold emailing the right kind of person really matters. I have secured at least interviews back when I was in college also, just by cold DMing or emailing at odd times, like 11:30 in the night or really early in the morning, so that my email is first in the inbox. One way of permissionless doing, I think this is slightly popular these days. People making, for example, I think Avkash Shah was this guy who made a video for Cred. Hey Cred, I want to intern here, and then iska internship ka video. So that is demonstrating your capability already. So if you are sure of exactly what you want to do, let's say if you want to do video, if you want to do like writing piece or something, you can send it directly to the person that hey, I've written this. And a lot of times it kind of guilts the other person also. भाई उसने सामने ले इतना मेहनत किया है,
Right.
पढ़ना या देखना तो बन सकता है.
Yeah.
So that really helps again.
Getting back to the next question, बहुत सारे लोग apply करते हैं internships पे, right? And they get exploited. So the next question is, how can someone figure out that a company they're applying at or they're trying to co-email the founder, वहाँ पे उनको एक सही एक नेटवर्क मिले and they do not get exploited in the sense they are not getting paid or they are just doing insignificant work without any work timings. So is there any way, do you think, they can make sure that doesn't happen?
See, there are 2-3 obvious ways in terms of you talk to people in the company before joining. Hit up somebody that hey, I've applied for an internship here. I've already made it in. People are generally helpful. You just ask, if you ask for minimum things and try to make it worth their time, as in like, can I just speak to you for 15 minutes? Make it even easier. Don't try to discuss, okay, आज free हो, कल free हो, परसों free हो, कब free हो. Now that is putting the ball in their court. If you're talented, if you have honest skills, if your work ethic is solid, you will find a place for work easily. This I've learned from Aditya also, like mostly from his sessions or his lessons, that always talk to your manager. That person is not there to bite you. Talk it out. Actually bring out a detailed pointers like, hey, I wanted to talk about this. How can I improve my performance? Probably I'm lacking in terms of prioritization. How would you go about this? What would you advise me? Stuff like that. I think that really always makes your time good at any place.
One of the things which I learned from my journey is it's always a good idea to just go on the company's LinkedIn page and go to the people section and just have a look कि on an average हर एक employee कितना टिक रहा है company में. If the people are leaving like every 3 to 4 months or 6 months, then the company is either not incentivizing them the right way, or it's not just paying them the right amount or whatever. So I think that is one of the major criterias which I certainly look for, because I have worked at one of the companies which was not really that mature, I would say, right? Because they also end up losing a lot of great talent. So I feel they're just not really that mature in their management style. And from what I've learned, it's majorly the talented people leaving the company, and people who are also very early in their career who are not really talented, they end up staying at these companies.
Definitely a good way to check out. As in, I think what you pointed was also crucial in terms of having a very good team around.
Hmm.
So when you're probably identifying, okay, what kind of place you want to work at, LinkedIn route, any company page, any LinkedIn company page, going to people section, going to also see what they were working as before. This particular company people, have they worked in interesting companies? Have they worked on interesting projects?
Hmm.
Because then you can learn a lot from them.
Going back to your internship period at, I think, Stoa, you joined earlier as a founder's office intern, and I think even at Find you first of all joined, or I think your current role is founder's office.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this particular role? Like, what are the kind of responsibilities you have to take, and what are the kind of hard skills and soft skills you should be having, so that you can, let's say, go about cold emailing a founder that you would be, for example, interested in joining the company as a founder's office.
If I have to categorize it into like two or three broad spectrums of work, one would be research. Are you good at research? Research would be anything new which has been thrown at you. Let's say if I'm in the tech space, if I've come across a new product, how quickly can I learn about that product, benchmark it against mine, and then come out with something actionable? So research is very much important. Presentation. How presentation, not the PowerPoint presentation, but how can you communicate your thoughts really well or not? Because you're speaking to a founder also as part of the particular role, also talking to a lot of different types of people within the company. That means you need to have, I don't come with from an engineering background, but I need to know how to speak the engineering language, or I should not shy away from learning the engineering know-how language or speak. Again, to kind of cut out the fluff, what founders office people end up doing, they lead some sort of function. Depends on how senior you are, of course. So if anybody is starting out in their career, I will never recommend founders office role, because it's too generalist of a role to build up a specialized skill. Because I had the fortunate experience of building performance marketing as a skill, then around it I have built, of course, events marketing as well. I can write copy, I can design some creatives, I have decent understanding of how the content marketing works. I've done
Right.
influencer, I've done some brands. So like on the marketing spectrum, I've done like a bunch of things. Especially I've done performance marketing and events marketing. Like that T-shaped marketing model. I have some breadth, I have some specialized skill. Now that I come with the marketing backbone, I can be deployed in a founder's office kind of a role. Maybe somebody is coming in with a sales experience, because here I end up doing a lot of sales also, by the way, as part of the founder's office role,
Got it.
because I'm handling like a product which we want to scale in terms of revenue. So my majority of my time goes into one particular product. This usually ends up with founder's office roles also. One problem statement takes up a lot more of your time day to day wise, because the founder probably doesn't have enough time to allocate to that particular problem, or they need like an additional brain. So once this product is kind of set up, maybe we have hired one more person for growth. So another, let's say 6, 7, 8 months, maybe I'm out of this product. Some new IP which we have built, some new product which we have built, we probably need to scale that for revenue. I might be deployed there. So that is how founders office usually ends up being rotated around, in a couple of different domains. But you're always coming in one strong set of skills which you can deploy immediately to whatever is ahead of you.
Got it. I think the right way to sort of summarize it is you are doing a lot of mental work as a founder's office. So it's always a good idea to come with, a good bunch of hard skills and knowing how startups work, and then combine those with some soft skills and land in a position where you can just allocate the resources or use the knowledge you already have to solve mental work problems, I think.
Founders offices are actually one of those roles where mental work, yes, but there's a lot of execution work as well, which is in your play. Pure play mental work is the founder's game. Like they have to do that kind of heavy lifting in terms of where do they where do we take this strategically, where do we take the company. Founder's office is rightly expected to do a lot of execution as well. So that is an important addition.
The next question is, as you have seen the performance marketing world so closely, right? What, according to you, is the industry average salary? Like Google Pay, it's mostly like 20,000, 30,000 at max, or I think that's the median salary. So, is it the reality in actuality within startups, considering if they're actually funded?
No, it's much higher than that. Based on some job postings I have seen, like of good decent companies, it is around 6 to 7 LPA plus usually for an entry level person, somebody who's just entering. Of course, 1 year in, 2 year in, if you've proven your metal in terms of you can do some XYZ things also, and you can do them well. See, in startups, you will end up doing something more also. If it's, as long as it's like 50, 100 people, you will end up doing more than just performance marketing. Or you have to be like insanely good at performance marketing that your main work is only performance. Nobody wants to touch you with more other some other type of work. Performance marketers actually enjoy slightly higher salaries also because their work is directly attributable to the impact on the business. So they will end up having slightly higher salary points. I have also seen people who are earning about 8 to 10 LPA. In some cases, you will get around 10 LPA if you're like an absolute fresher in a startup, just doing performance marketing. But yeah, something 6 to 8 would be a good average. Depends on like how many problems you're already solving for the business in general. Just by handling performance in the name of handling performance marketing, you can end up getting slightly more pay.
So the next question is, what do you think is the impact of AI on performance marketing, considering there's this huge amount of AI tools coming into the market? Is performance marketing now getting eaten by AI, or it still also have some potential?
Right now, it is definitely not there to eat into your skill. In the future, also, I don't see that happening. That AI replacing performance marketing essentially. That's still like some time away. If I come across an AI tool which assesses and gives me a report, it is only going to help me optimize my campaign further.
Hmm.
It is not going to manually go and do it
Right.
because we're talking about spending money. I
Correct.
think people are still not comfortable in terms of spending money through an AI.
Hmm.
Through an AI, like it might spend more, it might spend less.
Yeah.
They still want that human supervision to be there.
Right.
Uh, recommendations I'm still happy to get from AI.
Hmm.
कि तुम मुझे टेक्स्ट में बता दो, बातचीत कर लो मेरे से, एक्शन मत लेना बिकॉज मेरा पैसा लगा हुआ है पीछे.
Right. For someone who is starting in the field of performance marketing, how can they go about differentiating themselves from all the other people out there in the industry? How they can grab the opportunities and differentiate themselves? Like, how can they stand out in the marketplace?
See, it's very essential to first of all know that does your brand, whoever you're working for, do they have the budget for performance marketing or not? So if your main aim is to ideally become like a very good performance marketer, it's best to work with a company who depends on performance marketing. You become a better performance marketer by solving more problems. You will not get problems if you're not spending money. Performance marketing is designed to suck in money. You need to spend money. Only then you will be able to learn, okay, something has broken or something has not broken.
Right.
If something breaks, you learn about it. And somebody who has not had a chance of ever encountering that problem, you definitely are better than that person in terms of performance.
The last question is, what is going to be the piece of advice you would give someone who is starting their career, trying to gain skills in their first year of the college? Like a lot of books say you should follow your passion. Society says you should just run behind whatever field can give you the most money. So how should you be optimizing when you're starting a career?
When you're that young in like first year, second year, third year, it's mostly about putting your head down and actually just working, whatever is thrown at you. You will eventually find something which you feel, okay, I'm doing this faster and better. And that becomes your mojo. Performance marketing, for example, today I'm having this conversation with you. I never thought I'll do performance marketing. It was only given to me. I realized, okay, I'm kind of liking it, I'm enjoying it. That became my thing, end of the day. So you can become good at something that can become your passion also. Uh, it doesn't, you don't have to have a passion at first and then make a career out of it. So it's easier to make money, it's easier to follow your passion after you have money compared like vice versa. Like the path is slightly easier. Very rare few will follow a passion first and then make money compared to somebody who already has money and then they are following the passion. So even first year, second year, third year, do as many diverse things as possible. uh, I ended up doing a lot of marketing research projects in my college, and look where that landed me. I'm still doing a lot of research work, different types maybe, but it's still interesting. It's still in my play.
Got it. Thank you so much, Suryansh, for taking out the time to do this podcast.
Thank you as well.